say that, first of all, as a Jewish person, there's no such thing as contextualizing what they meant when you compare Donald Trump to Hitler. You can't say, oh, he's the KKK, but minus the part where they hunted down African Americans. There's no such thing. But here's the problem with society. And if I'm being honest, you are part of the problem. Sorry, I forgot your name. You
Wajahat Ali.
cannot justify you can't justify the violence because Pierce asked a very head-on question, is this wrong or whatever it was, and you spent the last 10 minutes trying to explain the other side, but then say you don't believe in two sides. Political violence is wrong, and I'm glad to hear you condemn that, but by you trying to make the argument that Trump, because he's XYZ, you almost made it seem like you understood why it could be justified and then looked for all these reasons that are completely invalid. You are part of the problem.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Leftist Losers Show, where we point out all of the losers of the left. And today I got a clip from the Piers Morgan Uncensored show, where a man named, I believe, Wajahat Ali is what Piers Morgan says. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but he joined, along with a few other people, Piers Morgan's show, and Piers Morgan just kind of asked them a few questions about how they felt about the current situation with regards to Trump assassination. And to be honest, Ali kind of just made a fool of himself. He did everything in his power to spin the narrative in the left's favor and try to play whataboutism, which he will complain about initially in his first little monologue. But the reality is that they're desperately trying to, make themselves the victims and claim that Trump's rhetoric is at fault, and that by him being who he is and the policy, and by having the policies opinions on policy, I should say, that he has, that he deserved what he got, essentially, and that it's not surprising, and this is basically what they believe, it's not surprising that what happened because he pushes hate and division. And the reality is they're playing the race card. They've been doing this the entire time. When Trump made immigration his primary focus, they immediately latched onto racism as their one way to fight that policy. Because the reality is there's nothing good about having the border wide open. Nothing good has come of that. So the only way that they can fight that is to convince regular people that the only reason Trump and Trump supporters don't want the border open is because they're racist and they don't like the quote-unquote brown people. And that's a joke. So here he is on the Piers Morgan show, making a fool of himself and trying to put the blame back on Republicans and Trump for why somebody attempted to assassinate Trump, and it's pretty despicable. But we're gonna go ahead and point and laugh and watch this happen now.
Ali, you posted this. Biden and other leaders thankfully de-escalated, did not make jokes or laugh about the violence like what happened when MAGA and Trump mocked Paul Pelosi. I mean, look, I've seen a lot of people on the left say that Trump, uses just as incendiary language. He's just as insensitive as people who've been attacked for being insensitive over Trump's shooting. But do you think that was a timely thing to post? I mean, do you not think that one of the arguments the left always put against the right in America, particularly after shootings, is, there should just be a period of dignity where you treat what's happened with utmost severity and you don't try and play whataboutery?
I just saw your interview with Ben Shapiro where it was nothing but whataboutism, and I'm not here to BS your audience or gaslight anyone. There was a registered Republican, a white male, who tried to
yeah, and you see right there, he's already playing the card, right? And this isn't related to immigration, as I was saying before, but as I said in my segment earlier about with regards to The View and the would-be assassin, every time they bring this guy up, they have to point out that he's a white guy every time, because even though it really doesn't matter, all that matters is the guy was deranged and probably indoctrinated by a lot of really crappy ideas that the media pushed and narratives that the media pushed. They don't want to focus on that. They're trying to put all the focus on the fact that he registered as a Republican, which I'll explain again for those of you who didn't see my earlier segment. The kid donated to Act Blue before registering as a Republican. And as the media was bragging about all of March and April, a lot of Democrats were voting in the Republican primary to get Nikki Haley selected so that they could stop Trump. And considering the kid was willing to try to assassinate Trump, I very much would believe that he was probably motivated enough, therefore, to register as a Republican, which the reason he would need to do that is because PA is a closed primary system, which means if you don't register as a Republican, you can't vote for the Republican primary. So he donated to Act Blue first, which goes to Joe Biden. It's a donation system for the Democrats. And then registered as a Republican to probably vote for somebody else to stop Donald Trump. And then when that didn't work, he did what he did on Saturday.
assassinate Donald Trump. Unfortunately, also there was a person who was killed, a father, and there were two people who were critically injured. And Donald Trump, ever since he descended the escalators 9 years ago and ascended to power for 9 years, has stoked the ultra-violence. I remember at his protest, he used to openly say, knock the crap out of him, I'll pay for your legal bills. This is the same people who's called the...
Yeah, okay, so if he's stoking ultra-violence, which is just a garbage word, like who says that? Ultra-violence was like the new Pokeball. How many leftists are being murdered by Trump supporters? I can't think of any. I can think of, however, the man who was shot. It was a Daniel Penny, was shot in Oregon, and just in the back for having I think he was wearing a Trump shirt or he had a tattoo or something. Just murdered on the street. There was no confrontation with those two guys, from what I remember from the video. I'm pretty sure they just killed him because he thought he was a Trump supporter. I remember that guy, Ashley Babbitt, who, yes, she was participating in January 6th, which I would say is deserving of criminal charges if she did anything, illegal. I do agree with that. However, she was murdered in the sense that that officer did not need to shoot her through the window. At least I couldn't see any justification for that. But that happened. She's dead. That's a Trump supporter, right? So there's other. I mean, how many people died during the Summer of Love riots? Quite a few. I mean, there were retired police officers and stuff who were murdered because they were interfering with the rioters. So this guy's a clown. I mean, yeah, he's stoking ultra violence, yet the only people getting murdered are people on the right by leftists who are all riled up by people like him who sit here and fearmonger and rile them up.
Press, people like us, people like you, Piers, enemy of the people, and as such for the past 9 years, multiple cases.
Yeah, so when he calls you, if you're a reporter, as the enemy of the people, he's referring to the fact that you lie to them and gaslight them and sow division throughout the country to try to tear the American people apart, and all that does is cause problems. That's why you're the enemy of the people. And that's not fear-mongering. He's never said go out and kill you or do anything like that. He's saying you are the ones that need to be shunned because all you do is cause problems, and therefore we should not listen to you.
This is where his followers have tried to commit violence against law enforcement, the press, poll workers. This is the same man who said, as of this campaign, I want to be dictator for a day. Last week, he prayed.
Yep, and that was on his interview with Sean Hannity, and he specified that what he meant by being dictator for a day was not that he was going to go murder people or throw them in gulags. He was referring to the fact that he was going to remove all of Joe Biden's executive orders and bring back the executive orders that he implemented during his last term, which were things like issuing licenses for oil companies to frack, which was a big reason why we had so much cheap gas, was because they were producing a lot of oil here in the United States that we didn't need to import. And also some of the executive orders with regards to the stay in Mexico and things of that nature for immigration.
Praised the January 6th violent insurrectionists, called them hostages. He incited a violent insurrection when those...
Well, I would call them hostages too. And for the only, if nothing else, it's for the reason of they haven't received, some of them that are still in jail, by the way, have not received a trial, which is completely against the Constitution. You have to receive fair trial. It's been years and these people are still locked up. And at this point, I think everyone kind of agrees January 6th was kind of a joke. Like, yes, there were rioters at the protest. I completely agreed. And those people should be charged accordingly. But years and years and years in prison with no trial, yeah, that's not how that works. And this guy's a clown.
Insurrectionists came to the Capitol with violence. Some of them came to assassinate Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence, his former vice president. You know what he said? Yeah, they're onto something. He encouraged them to kill Mike Pence, his former vice president. 2 weeks ago.
There's more evidence that there were FBI agents involved in January 6th than there are evidence that people were actually looking to assassinate any of the politicians. And the pipe bomb, for instance, the pipe bombs. Why no one talks about the pipe bombs that were supposedly planted on January 6th anymore? I wonder why. Maybe because it wasn't, a Trump supporter doing that. Maybe it's because it was one of the three-letter agencies that we're not sure how involved they were, considering who was it, Merrick Garland? He wouldn't comment, or whoever it was that was testifying in front of Congress for the FBI wouldn't comment on how many agents were in the crowd during January 6th. He claimed he had no idea how many were there, if any. Like, yeah, okay.
Donald Trump posted that he wants televised military tribunals for Liz Cheney, who used to be the number 3 Republican, and also the head of Heritage Foundation, who has released Trump's Project 2025 2 weeks ago, Piers, said that we're in the
Yeah, except for the fact that Trump already disavowed Project 2025, which definitely is starting to seem like a psyop, considering Democrats are so desperately clinging to it as the one argument they have for why Trump is evil. Trump already made a public statement almost like immediately after the 2025 came out as a thing, saying that he disavows what they said and that he does not agree with the policies they're pushing and will not be implementing it because it's not his. But they are really trying to stick this to him. And that it just makes me think it's got to be like, it's a psyop. It's got to be a psyop.
Process of a second American revolution, and it will be bloodless unless the left allows it to be. This is what we're dealing with. It is a toxic environment which has been stoked by Trump's embrace of the ultraviolence and violent rhetoric. And yesterday, Nancy Pelosi, her husband Paul Pelosi, folks, for those who don't know, another far-right nut, tried to assassinate her. He opened the door. He took a hammer to her head. He survived an assassination attempt. Do you know what MAGA and Trump did? They mocked him, ridiculed him, promoted conspiracy theories, and then Trump joked about it with the public. Nancy Pelosi yesterday, regardless of what you think about their politics, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and President Biden wished Trump well. They wished peace. They de-escalated the situation. And all of a sudden, we have whataboutism from the right wing. And I want to say one last thing about the right wing. Mitt Romney was the 2012 Republican presidential candidate. Do you know what Mitt Romney said?
The problem with the statement he just made about all of them cooling down the situation is that they've been stoking the fires for 8 years. One really bad thing happens, and now they act like they're sorry about it. Sorry, they don't act like they're sorry about it. None of them have apologized for that. What I'm saying is they act somber and offer prayers and condolences for the situation, but they are about to go, I guarantee you, in a couple days, we'll see them go right back to saying Trump is a threat to democracy and he's an existential threat and all these things that are they'll say he's anti-American and he's the most evil man in the world. They've been saying those types of things, comparing him to Hitler again, for the 100th time. They've been saying those types of things for years. But that's just he's being a hypocrite right now by saying this. Like, no, they're not cooling anything down. In fact, they're the ones that basically poured gasoline on the fire, and when it exploded, they went, "Oh wow, that's crazy," and they're gonna go right back to doing it again tomorrow, guaranteed.
Openly admitted he has to pay $5,000 a month for security for his family. He said Republicans in office right now are also terrified for their life. You know who they're terrified from? MAGA Republicans. This is what has happened. We cannot normalize this.
Okay,
we cannot normalize this nonsense.
Before I get to Emily,
and also,
okay, well, hang on. Let me get in.
Scholars of fascism.
Okay,
yeah, sure.
It's fine. You mentioned fascism. I just played a montage of endless people on the left calling Trump Hitler. Now, to me, it is an utterly ridiculous comparison. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis murdered 12 million people, 6 million Jews in a Holocaust. There is no comparison to be made by any sane mind between them, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, and Donald Trump. And I can imagine how impressionable minds, if they keep being told someone is Hitler, start to believe they might have a moral justification in killing such a person. Why wouldn't you if you genuinely think this man is Hitler? Would you like the left now to stop calling him Hitler? Do you think it's time to...
And why wouldn't impressionable minds think that? I mean, think about the shooter, right? He was 20 years old on Saturday when he attempted to kill Donald Trump. 20 years old. That means when Donald Trump ascended down the escalator, as this man likes to say, and a lot of people like to say, this kid would, I say kid at the time, this kid would have been 12 years old, right? So as a 12-year-old, the media was just starting to spin up their narrative machine to destroy the character of Donald Trump and compare him to Hitler and call him a Soviet spy, like, again, Hitler, the most evil man in the world, an existential threat, a traitor, all these crazy things. And then every time the Russia collusion hoaxes, all this stuff, and every time they would just make hit piece after hit piece after hit piece after hit piece. And if you're a 12-year-old kid, 13, 14, 15-year-old at that point in time, seeing all this stuff on the news, you got to remember, think back to, 8 years ago, there's a lot of, even now still, but even back then, there's a lot of normal people who considered the news to be, the establishment news, like CNN, MSNBC, all these places that were pushing these narratives. They look at them and just assume, like, oh, that's got to be the truth if it's coming from somewhere like as prestigious as those places, because that's why they're the ones on TV, right? So of course that he's going to believe all those things. It's not surprising at all. And if you're a kid who's been indoctrinated by that kind of fervent, despicable propaganda for so long, it's not surprising at all that you would feel the world is ending and you would do something crazy. It shouldn't be surprising. And to see this guy's about to try to defend that notion, and it's absolutely disgusting.
To stop doing that?
I don't know if the left is, but I know that the most sober scholars of fascism, including Timothy Snyder, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, and others who have studied the rise of fascism in Europe, the rise of Mussolini, the rise of Nazism, have talked about how MAGA and Trump resemble the rise of authoritarianism. Furthermore, I want to tell people that Trump himself said he will be a dictator for a day. And 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court said the president has, quote, absolute immunity for official acts done.
So you don't think it's a problem calling him
2025.
Hitler? You don't think it's a problem calling him Hitler?
Who called him Hitler? They're talking, and also who
called him
quotes
Hitler? Okay.
He literally quotes Hitler's language.
Do you want me to
He
go?
literally
The fact that he just said that when Pierce literally just played the montage, and this guy was paying attention to some degree because he literally referred to Ben Shapiro's interview, which was the segment right before this. So he was watching Piers Morgan's show that he's on right now. He clearly knows what Pierce just played. The fact that he just said that and said that who called him Hitler, that shows you right there that all this guy's doing is regurgitating talking points. He's been handed talking points from the Democrat establishment, from the mainstream media establishment, and he's just regurgitating all of those things as many times as he can on however many shows that he probably can. I'm sure there's other people out there doing it as well, and they're going to keep doing this to try to just beat it into people's heads. If you repeat something more than once, over and over and over again, it'll stick in people's minds, right? That's why the Hitler thing, right? They just repeat it over and over and over and over again. And that's why you'll run into people on the street who will just, the first thing they'll say, they're not even like involved in politics at all, but they'll be like, yeah, he's like Hitler. And it's like, what? Why did you say that? They said it because the news repeated it so many times, just like this guy's trying to do right now. And thankfully, while Pierce is not great on a lot of things, at least he's willing to, at least he'll call this guy out on his bullshit when he, is just clearly talking out of his ass.
quotes, wait,
No, do you want me to play again the minute? I just
language.
literally played a minute-long mashup.
I know,
of people on the left
heard it. I
literally
heard it
calling
all.
him Hitler. And my question for you, Wajahat, is I think it's incredibly
Yes.
stupid and inaccurate and wrong and inflammatory and dangerous to keep calling an American politician the new Adolf Hitler when he isn't. And my question to you is, do you agree with me?
I believe calling him Hitler when you said that Hitler did all those, the genocide. Yeah, they're not talking about that. They're talking about the pathway towards dictatorship where the pro-democracy coalition bent the knee in advance like you are doing, unfortunately. And they're talking.
That's great, but that's not that when people hear someone say something about Hitler, they don't think about any of the things he's listing off right now. They don't think about that. They think about what is the most egregious thing that Hitler is known for. It's killing millions of innocent people. Millions of Jewish people, millions of other minorities. He killed them and executed them, genocided them, whatever you want, however you want to put it, right? That's what people think of when they think of Hitler. So if you call him Hitler because he had the same haircut or whatever stupid thing this guy's listing right now, the fact that his rise to power was similar, okay, cool. But when you call him something, when you attach him to the name of Hitler, people don't look at that context that it's not the truth, right? The truth is they want to call him Hitler because Hitler's a bad word, right? It's the worst thing they can possibly compare him to. That's why they want to do it. They're now making up this bullshit context so they can pretend like they're not at fault for radicalizing people. That's all he's doing. He knows full well that the only reason he's calling Donald Trump Hitler is because it's not a good thing. It's the most despicable thing he can attach to Trump. So that's why he wants to do it. Then he's now, because people are questioning him and going, why are you calling him that? That makes no sense. They'll make up whatever context they have to justify it. And they'll make sure that they do it in a way like he's trying to do. Oh, it's the rise to power, so that they can claim that, well, we weren't trying to radicalize people because it didn't have anything to do with the millions of people Hitler killed. No, it had nothing to do with that. We just call them that because their rise to power is similar. Yeah, okay, that's a joke.
Talking about the rise of fascism. Also, speaking about Hitler, the language of Hitler. Sadly, he uses vermin, poisoning the blood, Third Reich. He uses that language,
what about
unfortunately.
Joe Biden?
So when he uses
what about Joe
Hitlerian
Biden?
language...
Okay, but what about Joe Biden?
He does not. Joe Biden does not use Hitler's language.
I'm about to read you something Joe Biden said only last week. This is what he told potential donors.
Sure.
It's time to put a bullseye on Trump.
Yes, I've heard that. And guess what? You know how that was represented? In the Detroit rally. I saw that. I saw the speech. There is an election happening right now. He talked about putting the focus on Trump and Trump's rhetoric. And then you know what happened? He went.
Piers disappoints me a little bit because I feel like that quote from Biden, I know that's the most recent, and it is kind of shocking to hear that he said that right before he attempted the assassination. I honestly want to think that that's just a play on words. I don't think that Biden was dog whistling to have the team go and assassinate Trump. I don't think that's the case. And there's plenty of other examples of things Biden said that were much worse, much more authoritarian in regards to Trump, that Pierce could have read off. But, you know, that was the most recent statement. Everyone's sticking to that. I do think that with how crazy they've been about Trump for years, I saying that and using that kind of language, while it might have been a play on words, it is kind of disgusting, especially in the context or the aftermath of an assassination, because it does raise eyebrows. Like, wait, what? He said that right before this? It's a little crazy. I personally don't think that was a dog whistle, but you know, people are gonna think that, and that's, you know, well within their right to do so. But Pierce definitely could have found a better defense for his argument here. But we'll continue on.
Went to the rally. I heard the speech. No violent insurrection. No dictatorship for a day. He talked about Trump's rhetoric.
So you don't have a problem. You don't have a problem. Okay. So you don't have a problem with the current Democrat president of the United States saying it's time to put a bullseye on Trump, his political opponent. Given that literally within days of him saying it, somebody put a bullseye on Trump and tried to assassinate him.
Within days of him saying that and literally campaigning against Trump, a registered Republican male, yes, tried to assassinate Trump. It was not liberals.
Well, it's also been reported he donated to Joe Biden. We don't know yet the motivation.
No, he did not.
Well, we don't.
No, he did donate to Joe Biden. Sorry, I didn't realize Pierce was about to say that. Yeah, you know, he did donate to Joe Biden. It's already been proven, and even CNN and MSNBC are reporting this now, that the shooter, let me specify, donated to Act Blue before he registered as a Republican. Act Blue is the organization that handles donations and funding for Democratic candidates, and specifically provides funding to Joe Biden. So it's pretty easy to infer that the shooter was most likely a liberal. He said it wasn't a liberal person. No, it probably was. I actually would be willing to bet lots of money that it was, because he donated to Act Blue. Most regular people don't know about Act Blue, but if you're donating to Act Blue, you're probably at least semi-deep into the Democrat, at least the political situation. So he donates to Act Blue, then he registers as a Republican. He's 20 years old, which means he can only have voted in this primary election, right? So what was going on during this primary election? Oh, that's right. Democrats were on the news bragging about how they were voting for Nikki Haley in the Republican primary, hoping to stop Donald Trump. And if this kid was motivated to go and try and assassinate Trump, I guarantee he was motivated, therefore, enough to go and at least register as a Republican so he could try to vote for someone who wasn't Trump. It's not that hard. It's not that crazy. In fact, there's a lot less assumptions going with that route than with the route that he was a Republican who wanted to just kill Trump for some crazy unknown reason.
We don't know enough about it to make an assessment. All I'm saying is, if the President of the United States says it's time to
look, this guy literally just lied. He said he didn't. He's not a liberal. He doesn't donate to Democrats. He just said he didn't donate to him. And then after Pierce continues pushing, he goes, "It was just $15." This guy is evil, man. He's evil. He's done this multiple times in this segment alone, and that is disgusting. He's willing to lie, cheat, and steal to gain power for his political group. It's absolutely disgusting. These people need to be pointed at and laughed at and shunned from society, right? Shame them. Shame them until they feel the need to change their mind, because this is just terrible. Or change their ways, because it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting that they would lie and manipulate regular people.
He's a registered Republican.
Well, I'm just saying, it was literally several days gap between the president saying it's time to put a bullseye on Trump and that being widely reported and somebody putting a bullseye on Trump. So when it comes to dangerous language and rhetoric, I actually think both sides are culpable, but Joe Biden and you apparently, on his behalf, do not see any reason to dial it down on your side.
I refuse to accept this nonsense bullshit both sides framing when literally yesterday the entire Democratic leadership de-escalated the situation and they're not even campaigning right now.
Yeah, okay, so they say they feel bad for what happened after Trump almost got killed by a shooter who shot up a rally with lots of innocent people. If you want to consider Trump not innocent, even though he is innocent, let's just pretend he wasn't. He killed innocent people to just get an attempt at Trump's life. And in doing so, put all of them at danger. And apparently that only at that point were Democrat establishments willing to act like they were apologetic and somber about the whole situation, when for years, 8 years to be exact, they've been spreading hateful rhetoric and pushing constant narratives about how evil and terrible Trump is. No, I'm sorry. This man's, it's a joke. There's This guy is spitting in your face. He's spitting in everyone's face. If you're on this guy's side of the aisle, he's still spitting in your face. He might be pushing your narratives, but he's lying to you openly and constantly. And all that does is make all of you look like fools. And you should shun him and remove him from your party. He's not helping. He's not helping you guys at all. All he's doing is making all of you look like idiots and evil people.
And literally last week, Donald Trump praised the January 6th violent insurrectionists as peaceful hostages, and 2 weeks ago asked for a military tribunal, and for 9 years has stoked violence against all the groups that I've mentioned, which is why law enforcement has said there has been a rise in stochastic terrorism. Stochastic terrorism is specific targeted violence against individuals and groups incited by public rhetoric. There have been more than 70 cases of Trump's MAGA followers attacking literally all of his critics, including media, poll workers, law enforcement, elected officials, people like Paul Pelosi. He has stoked this political violence for 9 years, and you have normalized it.
All right.
I have not.
Okay.
I condemn it.
Okay.
I condemn all of it.
Okay. So, and what were your personal feelings when you heard Trump had been shot?
It was I was on a WhatsApp group, and someone said he's been shot. I'm like, no way. And I immediately checked the video. I'm like, oh my God. And then he got up, and I'm like, thank God. Because I agree with what everyone said. It would have been disastrous for everyone. I mean, a political assassination. And then I thought nobody else was killed. Later on, I found out that the father tried to protect his family. He was killed. And then two individuals were critically wounded. And then the shooter was also killed. So it's one of those situations of exile and relief. Because, again, political violence has no place. There should be a way where you should look at the record and the rhetorics and the policies, and that should be enough, in my opinion, to show you that Trump is not fit. But thankfully, the leadership right now, regardless of what you say about Biden and everyone else, they really de-escalated yesterday. And I'm glad they did. That is sober, responsible leadership.
All right,
Can you imagine, Piers, God forbid, if the situation was reversed, what Trump would say? We know. We know the violent insurrection. We know who he is.
All right, let me bring in Emily. You've been waiting patiently. Your response.
Thank you, Emily, for waiting patiently.
First of all, yeah, I'd like to say that, first of all, as a Jewish person, there's no such thing as contextualizing what they meant when you compare Donald Trump to Hitler. You can't say, oh, he's the KKK, but minus the part where they hunted down African Americans. There's no such thing. But here's the problem with society. And if I'm being honest, you are part of the problem. Sorry, I forgot your name.
Wajahat
You can't justify the violence, because Piers asked a very head-on question. Is this wrong or whatever it was? And you spent the last 10 minutes trying to explain the other side, but then say you don't believe in two sides. Political violence is wrong, and I'm glad to hear you condemn that. But by you trying to make the argument that Trump, because he's XYZ, you almost made it seem like you understood why it could be justified, and then looked for all these reasons that are completely invalid. You are part of the problem, because we live in a society where if you don't like a person, we try to delegitimize everything they say. We invalidate the things that they say. We come up with outrageous accusations, and then we dehumanize them. And do you know who dehumanized groups of people? Hitler did. So the Democrats are actually taking a page right out of Hitler's playbook, and then have the audacity to make the Hitler comparison to Trump, which I just find ironic.
Yeah, and she's exactly right? And she didn't articulate that the best as neither will I, but she's right. The Democrats do this thing with almost everything, with their actions, with their words, with their narratives. They do one thing, they pretend they're not doing that said thing, and then they point at the Republicans and say they're doing that bad thing, when they're the ones doing it, right? The Democrats, the ones that pushed cancel culture. The Democrats, the ones that support Antifa, who's a black bloc group that walk around with black clothing on a mask and beat innocent people sometimes to death or near death, or shoot people, take over city blocks, burn down cities, do all kinds of crazy things. And the Democrats just turn around and go, we don't know what's going on, la, la, la. Like, we can't hear them. We don't know. Nope, that's not a real thing. They play that game. This guy has lied in just this segment alone so many times, and then contradicted himself, because he's catching himself in the lie, because he knows what's actually true, but is trying to manipulate people and doing a really bad job at it, as she pointed out. You know, he'll sit there and try to contextualize. Well, we call him Hitler because, you know, he just his hair kind of looks like Hitler, so therefore he's like Hitler, and like, you know, we got to insult him. I mean, how else are we going to win power? Yeah, the reality is they don't have an actual argument. They don't have any real policies. They don't actually have an agenda that will benefit any American. All they want is power, because that allows them to extract resources for themselves and their families and their friends. and they'll do whatever they have to do to get said power, aka lie, cheat, and steal. And this is the result. This is the result. They've done it for so long now that they've pissed off tons of people who wanted to throw, as Michael Moore said, a human Molotov cocktail, into the system, which was Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a symptom. He is not the source of problems. He is the symptom of a system full of people like this Ali guy who don't care about anybody and are willing to lie and spit on all of our faces on public TV and broadcasting, because if that's what he has to do to make sure that him and his buddies stay in power, he's willing to do it. And it's disgusting. And these people need to be pointed at and shamed. Like, we need to bring shame back to society, because violence does not solve anything. It doesn't. And as we've seen, look how much support Trump has now that somebody on the left went out and did something violent. Look how much support was gained by the right when they were burning cities down. I mean, these people are evil and terrible and are willing to commit violence. And we should make sure that we shame them for that willingness at every step. And we should point out the evil lies and acts that they commit and make sure we shame them for that. If you own a business and somebody like him walks in and you know this is one of these people that peddles these crappy narratives and lies, don't serve them. Don't let them buy coffee. Like, make them feel like they're not wanted because they're lying and being this way, you know? That's the only way that we're going to start to make the country better, is if we make sure that these people understand that it's not okay to do this stuff anymore. It's not okay to manipulate, lie, cheat, and steal your way to power. And we shouldn't idolize these people anymore. It's disgusting. Anyways, that's the segment I had. I just wanted to, bring this to you guys and let you just see. This is one of the most egregious examples I've found in the last couple of days of somebody who's just... It's hard to find segments where they literally catch themselves in lies and contradict themselves multiple times. And so when we do, I like to show it off to you guys. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know the segment is really long, but either way, just like, comment, subscribe, tear me apart in the comments if you like, whatever you want to do. I'm fine with it. And I appreciate all of you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.